Colorado's population growth in the 21st century has meant a boom in car commuters on our roads. It's also a home to a passionate and growing community of cyclists, and the high country poses its own set of unique challenges. No matter how you commute in Colorado, you probably face issues on our roadways. Over the next 30 minutes, we're taking a deep dive into some of those issues and the solutions aimed at making Colorado roads safer. We'll break down new legislation put in place this year impacting motorists.
To just keep saying no was not an option anymore.
How Colorado is leading the way in protecting its wildlife.
There's really not another transportation infrastructure investment I'm aware of that is going to get you that kind of a return on investment.
And why one of Denver's worst traffic bottlenecks won't get any better anytime soon. Thank you so much for watching this Denver 7 Plus special presentation of Safer Colorado Roads. I'm Landon Hoff. Now, as we show these stories, a QR code will appear on your screen, like this one, that'll take you to the corresponding in-depth story on Denver7.com. So keep that phone ready if you want to learn more. We start with an issue that impacts all of us, whether we're guilty of it ourselves or not, and that's phones behind the wheel. A new law is going to go in place at the beginning of next year that bans driving in Colorado with a mobile device in hand. Denver 7 digital journalist Oscar Contreras digs into the data behind that bill.
The numbers say Colorado's roads are getting less safe.
A 40-year high of traffic fatalities a few years ago, and that certainly is not acceptable.
But as Pete Piccolo with Bicycle Colorado says, the problem is especially bad for the most vulnerable on our roads.
The number of pedestrians and bicyclists getting killed on Colorado's roads has continued to increase. 2023 was the deadliest year for bicyclists and pedestrians in Colorado, 153.
That's 20 bicyclists and 133 pedestrians killed on state roads in 2023, double what the total was in 2015. A growing part of the problem on our roadways is distracted driving. Distracted driving accounted for at least 718 deaths on Colorado roadways between 2012 and 2022. And 91% of Colorados surveyed by CDOT last year admitted to driving distracted in any given week, with phones cited as the most common distraction. Lawmakers hope a newly passed bill will help. Senate Bill 65 will ban the use of handheld devices behind the wheel starting in 2025.
We just want everyone to know we're a hands-free state. You don't need a cell phone to operate a vehicle. We didn't need it for 70 years in this country's history. You don't need it now.
Representative David Ortiz is one of the bill's co-sponsors. He lost a cousin in a crash involving a distracted driver in the early 2000s. He says a, quote, wellspring of support for the bill came not just from families like his who lost a loved one, but from several other advocate groups.
Because of that support, it became harder and harder for certain traditional opponents of this bill, because this bill has been trying to move forward for a decade, to keep saying no. To just keep saying no was not an option anymore.
The law goes into effect January 1st of next year. But enforcement is also part of the equation, and leads to one particular dataset I found while researching this story. While data suggests distracted driving is on the rise, the number of careless driving citations has plateaued since the start of the coronavirus pandemic. Denver police didn't have an answer as to why, beyond the fact that citation numbers can vary for a variety of reasons. But Ortiz says starting next year, that trend could change.
I think what you're going to see is an increase because we have made it more enforceable. So we want to really hit that point home and hit the point that if you are driving with your cell phone in your hand and driving recklessly and carelessly, you will be pulled over.
In Denver, Oscar Contreras, Denver 7.
From four wheels to two, and the close calls impacting cyclists across Colorado that often don't get the attention they deserve. In a new series called On Two Wheels, Denver 7 journalist and cyclist Jeff Anastasio is shining a spotlight on the concerns of both new and seasoned riders alike.
She has a car.
I like it when the cars stay away from us.
But Nicole's main ride takes her and her co-pilot.
This is Vera. She's my little riding companion.
All over town for all the errands.
It's a utility vehicle, yeah.
And wherever that is, her head is on a swivel.
Yo! Hey!
Thousands of miles of hard-earned experience and lessons learned.
Yep, right there, the red light.
Captured through her unique lens, advocating for safer streets, better design and infrastructure,
Yo, hey!
and better behavior from all of us.
Wow, this is really like who we're supposed to be sharing the streets with.
Her short clips get a lot of views and are glimpses into the everyday joys and challenges of just trying to get there in one piece.
Rolling through stop signs and, you know, like eventually stopping for you. Yo, yo! There are some days when, you know, you're only a couple of blocks away from home and you've already had a couple of like incidents. You know, like, okay, I don't know what's in the air or the water right now, but you have to pay attention.
And it's those intersections and trusting that the driver is going to do the right thing where things can go wrong.
Yeah, it's it gets scary. The blatant red light running. Yep, right through it.
While Nicole has a car and still drives occasionally, most of her trips around Denver are on these wheels, which is the same across town.
So we're at 18th and Market.
At another hotspot in the middle of the busyness that is downtown Denver. Rob Toughness, aptly named No Squish on social media, is a seasoned rider, explaining what often goes down at this intersection.
So we have the bike lane at the curb that is protected. We have a bike light here. Riders in the lane will get a green bike light and they can go straight ahead. Drivers will get a red turn arrow here to stop them from hooking across the bike lane. So they'll come out of the parking garage, cross all the way to the right turn lane, and then immediately just cruise through the red turn arrow. So that's why this one is probably one of my more dangerous. I should say I'm more vigilant here.
Hopping on our bikes, it doesn't take long to roll up to back-to-back obstacles, even in dedicated bike lanes.
It's a good one.
First, a vehicle stopped blocking the bike lane.
And that's another one of those where they'll say, oh, it's, you know, just go around.
Then a few yards ahead, a ladder stretched across the lane means we have to roll back onto the street where drivers might not be expecting us.
I mean, you were with me, it's not that comfortable to go out into traffic. I don't want to dart around a moving truck. And we see that's when bad things happen.
Whether behind the wheel or holding on to the handlebars, Rob, who is a co-founder of the Denver Bicycle Lobby, says we're all safer when road design plays in all of our favor.
Bike lane and the car lanes, they're not in competition. It's a benefit to a driver as well. I find when I drive downtown, I'm glad to have the bike lanes.
90% of the drivers out there are actually pretty courteous. And that doesn't mean they're always safe, because there's just something very inherently dangerous about, you know, driving around a very large motor vehicle.
Now, Jeff has been embedded in our cycling community throughout the recent months, sharing heartwarming stories, those advocating for change, and more. Scan the QR code on your screen or go to denver7.com/on2wheels to keep reading. Now, back in August, another law went into effect that impacts another group on two wheels, and that's our motorcyclists. That law made lane filtering legal in our state, and this is what you need to know about lane filtering and what it means for you.
The easiest way to describe what lane filtering means for Coloradans might be to first describe what it doesn't mean. It is not the same as lane splitting, where a motorcyclist is allowed to zoom between lines of moving traffic.
That is illegal now. It will continue to be illegal with this bill.
That's Nick Heinrichsen, a Colorado state senator and an avid motorcyclist himself. He's one of the sponsors of SB 79, which makes lane filtering legal in Colorado effective August 7th of this year.
Lane filtering is a more conservative option than lane splitting. And what it is during controlled traffic situations at low speeds where a motorcyclist can filter between the lines of traffic.
Okay, so there were some key words there. Controlled traffic situations, which means when traffic is stopped. The motorcyclist can't go more than 15 miles per hour and can't pass on the right shoulder or in a lane of oncoming traffic. Supporters of the law expect marginal improvements to things like traffic congestion and vehicle emissions, but most importantly, protection for motorcyclists, who are some of the most vulnerable on our roads.
We saw a record number of motorcyclists killed in Colorado in 2022. Motorcyclists are only about 3% of the vehicles in our roadways, yet they represent 20% of the traffic deaths that we see out there.
One of the riskiest times for a motorcyclist is during a traffic jam, at the moment that traffic becomes backed up. For all road users, that is the point in which you're most susceptible to being involved in a rear end collision.
But we're still left with one big question. Will it make our roads safer? We took that question to public safety officials in Utah and Arizona, where similar laws are already in place.
We are still in the data gathering phase, trying to figure out exactly how this has impacted safety.
Even in Utah, where lane filtering has been legal since 2019 and the law has been extended past multiple sunset dates, the data is limited.
On our statewide crash form that every police officer in the state uses to report a vehicle crash, there isn't a checkbox or a place that they can indicate where lane filtering was occurring as a factor in the crash. We just don't have that yet because it's a new law, so we're still learning.
That checkbox is being added to those crash reports starting in January of 2025. Unofficially, in situations where lane filtering was likely, they say the crashes have remained pretty flat.
So as far as we can tell, we can't show a lot of safety that's occurred, but we can't show any negativity that's occurred from it either.
In Arizona, lane filtering became legal in September of 2022. While no data on its impacts exists publicly just yet, the sergeant in charge of the Glendale Police Department's motorcycle division spoke anecdotally about lane filtering.
I do it for 40 hours a week, for the last 14 months. Zero issues.
Research for Colorado's law included studies done in Australia, Europe, and California that indicated even lane splitting is much safer for motorcyclists than being stopped on a busy roadway. One thing does remain abundantly clear. Adjusting to lane filtering will take some time.
It just takes time for people to have experience with this and actually see it implemented and how, and then for them to understand the safety aspect of that.
But its proponents in Colorado say the adjustment will happen. Heinrichsen compared the change to when Colorado adopted roundabouts in the late 90s.
And there was some consternation and heartburn about it because it just wasn't something we're used to. And now what we've seen is they work. I think most Coloradans have become really adapted to them.
Now, Colorado's lane filtering law was passed as a 3-year trial. In 2027, lawmakers will have a chance to extend, revise, or repeal that law. Still ahead, a look at the unique way Colorado is reducing collisions with wildlife, plus why one spot on I-70 is home to one of the busiest runaway truck ramps in the U.S. Welcome back to this Denver7 Plus special presentation of Safer Colorado Roads. I'm Landon Hoff. Now, one spot on Interstate 70 in Colorado's high country is home to one of the busiest runaway truck ramps in the United States. Denver7's Richard Butler shows us how this tool is protecting all drivers.
Because of the steep decline, that is why it's the highest use.
The highest used runaway truck ramp in the U.S. is right here in Summit County because of that steep decline and high traffic volume.
When you go down that hill, it's pretty steep. It's deceivingly steep. 90% of the trucks that use these escape ramps, they're out of state.
By design, runaway truck ramps exist to provide vehicles a safe route to decelerate away from traffic when they lose their brakes. They're usually in steep mountainous areas, and Colorado's I-70 corridor is one of them.
We absolutely encourage truckers to use those escape ramps when they need to. When their brakes are failing, when their brakes are not working, that's what those ramps are there for.
If they're doing 65 miles an hour coming out of that tunnel, their brakes alone can't stop them.
Charlie Stubblefield is the owner of Mountain Recovery Towing and has seen it all.
Towing in the I-70 corridor, Rocky Mountains through Colorado, it is unlike anything else. It's on a super steep grade, so we always run the risk of that truck coming back into us even after that truck comes to a stop.
He says time is always of the essence to clear a scene quickly for its next emergency use.
We always have a person that's watching at the bottom of that ramp for any possible other trucks that are needing to use that ramp.
And while winter driving conditions can be brutal, Charlie says the summer is actually the busiest time of year for Mountain Recovery. They do about 20 to 40 runaway rescues per year. with July and August being their busiest months.
It's a dangerous spot, that's for sure.
Accidents happen, but Charlie says there's one simple thing drivers can do to stay safe.
We want trucks to be going 35 miles an hour once they hit this tunnel. We want trucks to be going 45 miles an hour once they crest over the top of Vail Pass.
Denver7, Richard Butler.
Okay, so we've spent a lot of time so far talking about measures that impact humans, but safer roads, especially in Colorado, help animals too. And thousands of collisions with wildlife happen on Colorado roadways every single year. But as Denver7's Stephanie Butzer shows us, work is being done to reduce that number, and there's a whole lot more to come.
With I-25 traffic flying overhead, this underpass provides a vital route for wildlife to cross the busy road.
We're getting elk, deer, bear, mountain lion, turkeys, bobcats.
In the past decade or so, Colorado has become a leader in constructing wildlife crossings, with more than 40 underpasses and 3 overpasses.
Colorado experiences about 4,000 wildlife vehicle collisions every year, costing taxpayers around $80 million a year.
But those numbers, 4,000 and 80 million, don't tell the whole story.
A lot of the accidents don't go reported.
Once a wildlife vehicle crash hotspot is identified and a crossing is constructed, the number of those types of crashes plummets.
In some of the cases, we've seen like a 97% reduction in crashes. I mean, there's really not another transportation infrastructure investment I'm aware of that is going to get you that kind of a return on investment.
Take a look at one of the most important crossing systems in the state, the Colorado Highway 9 Wildlife Crossing Project south of Kremling.
And one of the reasons I think it is such a great project is over 10.5 miles, CDOT designed 7 wildlife crossing structures. So that's the largest system that we have currently on the landscape that's designed for wildlife. We saw a 90% reduction in wildlife vehicle collisions. And so it's been a huge success. And it was Colorado's first 2 wildlife overpasses.
Just like people, animals can be picky. Critters like deer and coyotes and bear may prefer an underpass, while other animals like moose, elk, and pronghorn like the open space of an overpass. And that is all taken into account when constructing these crossings.
So what we do on a weekly basis is we're sharing pictures and saying, boy, look what we caught today, you know, and these things are using it. And oh, we haven't seen a pronghorn come that close yet, you know, so it's so exciting. You know, so to capitalize on this momentum that's been occurring for about the last 5 years and to get some of these things built and to see the success, it's just makes us giddy.
More of these crossings are coming to Colorado, such as the I-25 Greenland Wildlife Overpass in Douglas County, part of the I-25 South Gap project.
When constructed, it's going to be the largest structure in North America for wildlife use. These systems that cost millions of dollars, they actually can pay for themselves. Okay, if we know they're 90% effective, we can reduce crashes. We can reduce the amount of wildlife that get hits, and all that translates into money. And these things end up paying for themselves in 15 years.
The Greenland Wildlife Overpass construction will begin later this year or early 2025. Experts say Colorado is in the middle of an incredible window of opportunity as we invest in upgrading our road infrastructure.
We're going to be investing in these facilities and we're going to be bringing them up to the new standard. That new standard absolutely has to include wildlife considerations.
Reporting for Denver7, I'm Stephanie Butzer.
We have an in-depth look at these wildlife crossings and the data that drives decisions behind building them, published right now on denver7.com/wildlife crossings. The section of I-25 along the west side of downtown Denver is one of the worst bottlenecks in the city. After the break, we take a look at how we got here. It is the undisputed gridlock champion of Colorado. The 7-mile stretch of Interstate 25 from Santa Fe Drive to the I-70 interchange, not too far from where we're filming this right now. Snaking slowly around downtown Denver, that stretch of roadway handles nearly 300,000 cars every single day. And it continues to see traffic volume increases with a 23% jump in the past decade. Despite being Colorado's biggest traffic mess, though, plans to expand the corridor were shelved in 2022 due to environmental concerns and public opposition. CDOT instead focusing on safety improvements and transit options in the area. The agency is working to replace the Spear Boulevard and 23rd Avenue bridges that were built in the 1950s when Interstate 25 was called the Valley Highway. A little bit of history. Construction on the Valley Highway began in the 1940s, but it wasn't until the 1950s and the passage of the Interstate Highway Act that things got into full swing. In 1958, the Valley Highway opened through central Denver. Traffic at that time was manageable, but a 1984 traffic accident involving torpedoes forced CDOT to act. In 1987, Central 25 was widened, and construction of the new I-70 bridges over I-25 began. These bridges were completed and the ribbon cutting was held in 1991. Fast forward to 2024, and the Central I-25 corridor has largely stayed the same for the better part of 30 years. But that doesn't mean that nothing will be done. CDOT said additional improvements to the interchange system will be studied. That does it for this Denver7 Plus special presentation of Safer Colorado Roads. I appreciate you so much for sticking with us. Now, if you're just joining us or you want to learn more about any of the stories we've shared over the last half hour, just scan the QR code on your screen right now to find them all in one place. Until next time, I'm Landon Hawk.